I'm Mike Bowler. When we're working with a Kanban team for the very first time, one of the most common questions we get is how do we set those initial WIP limits on a Kanban board? So imagine that we have a board that looks like this. The first question we'll ask is what work do you already have? And let's put that work up on the board so that we can see what we've got. And when we lay the work out initially, we can see that we've got things in certain columns already. So we'll start with the ready column at the beginning. And we'll say, is this typical? We can see that there's 4 work items there right now today. Is this a typical thing for any given day? And the team might say, yes, this is typical to have 4 items here. So then I might assign a WIP limit a little bit bigger than 4. And the reason I want it a little bit bigger is because a brand new Kanban team has more than enough to focus on that I don't want them to hit the WIP limits in their first couple of days. Once they get past that stage and they start to get into a routine, yes, then we do want them to be bound by the WIP limits in order to get things done more effectively. But on the first day or two, they've got more than enough to think about. So I like to set the WIP limits just a little bit bigger than they actually need. So then if we move along to column A, we can see that currently there's 2 work items there. And we'll ask the team, is this typical? And the team might say, no, that's not typical. What's normally in this column are 5 things. So even though there's 2 there right now, we can't set the WIP limit at 2. We have to set the WIP limit big enough to account what is normal. And in this case, what's normal is 5. So again, adding a little bit of buffer, we'll give it a WIP limit of 6. We move along to the next one. There's currently a 1. Is that 1 typical? In this case, the answer is yes. So we'll set the limit to 2 and we'll move on. Then we get to column C. And in column C, the team might say, on a normal day, we would have 2 items here. So we would set the WIP limit to 3. But today is a little bit different. Today we actually have 5 items in this column. So even though we'd like to set the WIP limit to a 3, we can't because that would immediately put us into violation of the WIP limit. And we don't want to normalize being out of the WIP limit because that just causes all kinds of undesirable behaviors. So we want to ensure that the WIP limit today is big enough to account for the fact that we currently have 5 there. That means we have to set it to no less than 5. Now tomorrow, when we revisit this, we may find that one of those items has moved to done, at which point we can have the conversation about can we lower that WIP limit to 4? And the day after, can we lower that WIP limit to 3? But we don't want to lower it while there are still items in that column because we don't want to normalize the behavior of violating the WIP limit. Teams have a tendency to overcomplicate this. As you've seen, it's actually quite simple to pick some initial numbers. And I've seen a lot of teams try to complicate this to try and find mathematical models that would show them exactly where to put different values. Just pick some numbers. Whatever number you pick, it's going to be wrong to start with anyway. The numbers that you pick now will either be too high or too low, and we'll adjust them as we go. So don't be too stressed about picking the right numbers. It's just going to be wrong anyway. We need to start somewhere, and then we'll adjust.